Better late than never. Hello everyone and welcome to this video where I will talk about WrestleMania weekend and all the shows that I watched over the course of WrestleMania weekend. The several big things that happened, a lot of headlines coming out of WrestleMania and especially coming out of the Hall of Fame. A lot of stuff went down this weekend, so I'm going to spend this time to go over it all. And I apologize I didn't get this up Sunday night. Well, Monday morning, really, because WrestleMania didn't end until, I mean, the bell for the main event rang at, like, midnight anyway, so I was like, holy shit, this show is literally going into the next day. It's literally going into Monday. That's crazy. But, yeah, because WrestleMania ran so late, I was like, I'm not doing a video. This is I'm gonna be a sleepy, drunk mess. And Monday, I just got busy with so many other things that I didn't have time to do it. But I'm here now. Again, better late than never. So it's here. It's now time to talk about WrestleMania weekend and all the different shows I watched. I think the best way to do this is to really start with Hall of Fame, WrestleMania. Hall of Fame I can get through pretty quickly because I didn't watch it. But obviously I have to talk about it because something happened. But yeah, we're going to talk about Hall of Fame, then WrestleMania, then NXT, and then ROH New Japan Supercard, and then Impact United We Stand. That's kind of the reverse order of how I watch the shows, but I figured I'd start with the most important one. But say what you want, WrestleMania is the most important show of the weekend, most important show of the year. Good or bad. But let's get started with the Hall of Fame, the show I didn't watch. I didn't see any of the speeches, didn't see anything that really happened. But while I was watching ROH New Japan Supercard, there was a headline. I noticed a headline on Twitter. A fan attacked Bret Hart while he was giving his speech at the Hall of Fame. I was like, what? And I saw all the footage. I'm looking into like all the cell phone footage that was coming out. I saw Dash Wilder, my new hero, punch the motherfucker right in the face. I've watched that clip like 100 times. It makes me so happy every time I see it. And some people are shitting on Dash for doing it. I'm like, hey, look, that motherfucker jumped over the rail and started shit. He deserves anything that happens to him after that. If you're that stupid and you're going out of your way to disrupt the ceremony, you know, I don't blame Dash at all. I probably would have done it too. It's like you're just trying to get yourself over or fulfilling whatever like warped idea in your brain that you thought was a good idea. Apparently he told the judge it seemed like the right time, or he released a statement saying it felt like the right time. It felt like the right time to put on a Rastafarian hat and jump over the rail and attack Bret Hart. Take Natty down too. That's the other thing. Natalya got taken down too in the scuffle. And it was just really unfortunate when something like that happens. I felt really bad for everybody involved. I really felt bad for Bret that, you know, he wanted to... I felt really bad for Natalya because, you know, she just lost her dad, and this was kind of a nice thing to honor her father, and this idiot comes into the ring and starts shit for no good reason. And apparently the guy... people have told me that on Twitter. I've seen his mugshot, but apparently on Twitter he's a bit of a basket case. He's been accused of stalking in the past. He's a amateur MMA fighter. Apparently he's got a few screws loose. And I'm not trying to make fun of the mentally ill. I'm just saying, you know, it's an explanation, not an excuse for his behavior. There is no excuse for what he did. And, you know, now that Dash Wilder did what he did, maybe people will think twice before doing something stupid like that. And this kind of like feeds into a thing about the Hall of Fame. I don't know if I've talked about this in the past, but I'm going to bring it up here. My personal opinion with the Hall of Fame, I really wish they wouldn't let the fans attend the Hall of Fame. You know, I know Vince has turned it into something that he can make money off of, but to me, it's like it's supposed to be a classy thing, and that kind of cheapens the image when you have a bunch of fans in t-shirts and jeans and shorts and hats and whatever, and they're chanting and hooting and hollering like it's any other wrestling show. And to me, that's like, you know... Again, I feel like it should be a classier thing. Like, if I went to the Hall of Fame, if I went that night, my instinct would be to go in a suit. Suit and tie, sit there, be respectful, listen, and then clap when they're done. That's what I would do. But the fans they go there and they're almost encouraged to treat it like any other wrestling event. And that's never really sat well with me. And I'm not saying that all the fans that go to the Hall of Fame are as bad as that idiot that jumped over the railing, but you know, it's kind of become a thing where it fosters the environment of wrestling fans being wrestling fans, and in some cases, every once in a while, you get one bad egg that ruins everything and decides to act like an idiot. Again, personally, for up to me, Hall of Fame would be strictly just family and the wrestlers and anybody that works for WWE. If they have to have fans there, or if they feel like that fans should be allowed in, then the fans should be encouraged. There should be a dress code and, you know, code of behavior. Yeah, you know, standards and practices or whatever. Just a set of guidelines of how you're supposed to act. Look, do not chant during the speeches. Do not, you know, curse or anything like that. And I know I sound like I'm being a spoil sport when I say that, but to me, the Hall of Fame should be something classier than that. I know the Hall of Fame really has no standards. The people that get in, it's whoever Vince likes and whoever Vince thinks he can make money off of. I know this. We all know this. There's no official system for getting in. But at the same time, it is still nice to see the guys that I like get honored. I was super happy to see DDP get in. I was super happy to see Ravishing Rick Rude go in. You know, things like that. And I just want it to be treated more respectfully. And, you know, letting fans in street clothes and being encouraged to chant and rant and rave like any other wrestling event, that's always kind of never really sat well with me. And if they completely overhauled that process and just found a better way to handle that situation and presented the Hall of Fame and encouraged the fans to be a little bit classier with the event, I'd be okay with that. And you know, I know I rag on the WWE for watering down their product and being sticks in the mud and super strict about stupid things, but the Hall of Fame should be a little different. I think that's a case where it's like, look, suit and tie, sit down and behave yourself. Don't be an animal. Like, just please, just for one night, you wrestling fans that go to the Hall of Fame, one night, could you not be animals? Just one fucking night. Could you attend a wrestling event and not act like savages? WrestleMania, go nuts. Like, do whatever you want within the confines of good etiquette and acceptable behavior. You know, perform in a way that won't have security leaping all over your ass, which I don't know how the hell that dude got all the way to the ring without security pouncing on him. That's another thing that floors me. I'm like, I can't believe he even got close enough to tackle Bret. Why'd he go after Bret of all people? Like, what? Like, I'd love to hear his reasoning for why Bret was the one he went after. I mean, sure as hell wasn't going to go after Harlem Heat. That's for damn sure, because they would have ripped him to shreds. I mean, the two of them, I mean, those are, Booker and Stevie Ray are two tough guys. But, yeah, I can go after the stroke victim, former cancer patient, man in his 60s. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, real tough guy. Yeah, good job. But anyway, it's, that's kind of my take on the Hall of Fame. Again, I haven't watched the Hall of Fame. I haven't had time to watch it, to be perfectly honest. But I did want to talk about what happened because it was such a crazy thing. And actually, I found out the headline. I saw the headline for what was going on while I was watching ROH New Japan Supercard, and I'll talk about this more when I talk about that event, but I read the headline at the same time. A friend was calling me, telling me that Enzo and Cass had just jumped the rail at Supercard. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? And I was like, is that why the production, like, why they're hanging on the announce table for so long? It's like, yeah, Enzo and Cass just jumped the fucking rail, and I'm like, what is a shoot? Like, what the hell's going on? What is in the water in New Jersey and New York these days? What the hell is going on? Of course, it turned out the Enzo and Cass thing was a work, which thank God. But it was so crazy to see both of those things happen, almost like to find out about them almost simultaneously. It was just insane to me. It's just one of those weird like wrestling coincidences. But yeah, that's really all I have to say about the Hall of Fame. Congratulations to everybody that went in, but let's get into WrestleMania, the 19-hour show that was WrestleMania. The pre-show, we got 4 matches. Most of the matches were okay. Well, okay, the 2 title matches were okay. The Battle Royals I could have done without, but they were just typical Battle Royal fare. The SNL guys are not funny. They are really, really not funny. And I didn't like any of their antics. you know, Braun won, which good. I mean, if anybody's going to win that thing, it should have been him. But, you know, all the antics with the SNL people, that was just pointless to me. And just didn't do anything to add any entertainment value to the match or anything else. The Women's Battle Royal was even less remarkable than that. And actually, one weird thing, and again, this ties into Supercard. I watched the New Japan, or the Honor Rumble. And then I saw the 2 Battle Royals for WrestleMania in the pre-show. 3 pre-show Battle Royals, right? All 3 of them had the coward hit under the ring and then snuck out at the end to try and win it. And it worked for everybody but the SNL guys. And I was like, wait a minute, so that spot was done in 3 Battle Royals over the course of 2 days. I think wrestling is running out of ideas, guys. And in Supercard's position, it's forgivable because they did it first. They did it the day before. It's like, wait, so New Japan Supercard did it first, and then you proceeded to do it twice the very next day. And I'm like, that's within 2 hours of each other. Oh my god, it was crazy. It was crazy. I'm like, when they did it, because the women's one was first, and when they did the Andre the Giant Battle Royal, I was like, oh my god, are they doing the same? They just did this spot. They did this spot earlier in the same pre-show. Because Carmella snuck out because, you know, babyfaces cheat to win now, because that's the state of the WWE babyface. But Carmella cheated to win in that Battle Royal, and then the SNL guys tried to do it in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, but didn't pay off for them. Thank God. Again, I worry for the state of SNL if those are the guys that are featured on the program. Again, I haven't watched SNL in years, but that's my take on it. But anyway, I thought the other 2 title matches were solid. I thought the Cruiserweight title match, Buddy Murphy versus Tony Nese, was okay. I'm not interested at all in Tony Nese. I was a little surprised that he won the title, except for the fact that it's WrestleMania and they just wanted to have as big moments as possible, even if it was on the pre-show. I thought the match was solid. It was a perfectly acceptable, solid match. Coming from somebody who does not watch 205 Live on the regular, I was impressed with Buddy Murphy the last few times I'd seen him, but I just haven't felt compelled to, you know, watch the show. It's just doesn't seem that interesting to me, but I thought they went out there and had an okay match. Especially as, like, it was a perfect warm-up the crowd that's just filing in type of match, and it was perfect for that. The best match of the pre-show, much to my surprise, was the Revival versus Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder for the Raw Tag Team titles, a match that was just randomly thrown onto the card with little to no build-up. And it's so funny that Zack Ryder was in this match, because it's almost the same feeling I had when he won the IC title at that one WrestleMania a few years ago, where, you know, he revealed, it's like, oh, I had my picture taken with Razor Ramon with the IC title, and ever since then I really wanted to hold that belt, and blah, blah, blah. And they said all this after he won the belt, and I'm like, why didn't you start planting the seeds for this in January and let that be his storyline heading into Mania, so this feels a little less random? And I kind of feel the same way here. They're like, oh my god, Kurt Hawkins has lost 280-some matches in a row, and now's the chance for redemption. I don't know how a guy that loses 287 matches could earn a title shot of any kind, singles or tag, but whatever. I would have liked to have seen, like, a storyline with this where the Revival just beats everybody on Raw. They just beat everybody, run through everybody, and then for WrestleMania they say, we are going to handpick our opponents, and they deliberately pick, like, the shittiest team. You know, we've been allowed to handpick our opponents, and we're going to pick these losers, this guy who's lost almost 300 matches, and they mock him, and he's pathetic, and blah, 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 and then at WrestleMania they suffer the fall. That's what make more of a story out of it than just, hey, we're doing this match, guys, and we're going to have a title change. And that's it. But the match itself was pretty good. Like, I was like, you know what? This is a pretty solid match. It says a lot for the Revival that they're able to have such a really good match with no build-up, and with the tag division that's kind of directionless at the moment, involving a guy who the fans have absolutely no reason to invest in because he's lost so often. And 2 guys, you know, him and Ryder, Hawkins and Ryder, 2 guys that I completely forgot were still with the company. Yeah, and that's another thing they could have done. They could have done a thing where Zack felt sorry for his former partner. It was like, look, I can help you get back on track. Let's do this together. And they could have worked that into the story, but If they referenced it at all on TV, I missed it, and it must have been super quick. Because the build-up for this was almost non-existent. But despite that, they managed to have a pretty solid match. And they ended up getting like 15 minutes. What does it say on the Wikipedia? They got 13 minutes and... no, wait, am I looking? Yeah, 13 minutes and 20 seconds. And I'm like, damn. You know, on the main card, they wouldn't have gotten half that. So it's like they actually got a better spot by being put on the pre-show in a weird roundabout way. And it's like, yep, Revival. They're good. Dash Wilder, biggest babyface of the weekend. The hero of the WrestleMania pre-show and the Hall of Fame. Good for you, Dash. I love you. So that really wraps up the pre-show. Really all there is to say about that. Nothing overly offensive as far as the matches go. Perfectly solid fare for pre-show type of stuff. No real complaints except for maybe the SNL guys. And repeating the hide underneath the ring spot for 2 Battle Royals is a bit overkill. But in any case... let's go to the opening of the show, which began with Alexa Bliss snapping her fingers, and out comes Hulk Hogan for a brief cameo, much like Peter Ustinov in The Great Muppet Caper. What are you here for? A very brief cameo. Me too. You know, Peter Ustinov had a little scene with Oscar the Grouch. It was cute. But anyway, so Hulk Hogan comes out, does his shtick, references the Silver Dome gaff, so that's become a running gag now. And out of nowhere storms Paul Heyman. And to see Paul Heyman storm to the ring while Real American is playing is kind of hilarious. But in any case, Paul Heyman says, if we're not on last, we're not going to wait. Bring out Brock Lesnar and we're going to have the Universal title match now. It's like, oh shit, we're doing this. Okay. That's an unpredictable way to start the show. So Lesnar and Seth gets kicked off right away. Lesnar basically... attacks Seth before the bell and throws him all around the ringside, F5s him outside the ring. Finally gets him inside the ring, rings the bell. The referee gets tied up with something, and Seth scores a lucky low blow. And then stomps him twice and gets the shock victory. The match itself was not much. It's a clear indicator. It's like, oh, Brock must have not felt like working that night. It's like, I love how it's so obvious that Brock just does not give a shit. But sometimes him not giving a shit actually leads to them creating some pretty cool things, like the Goldberg match at Survivor Series where he got beaten a minute and a half. That happened because Brock doesn't care. Like, you pitch that to Triple H where he's like, I lose to Goldberg in a minute and a half. He's like, fuck you, I'm not doing that. Lesnar's like, whatever, you paying me? Alright, cool, yeah, I'll job to him in a minute and a half. I don't give a shit. And you ended up getting something really cool out of it. And I thought this was cool. I thought it was a nice, shocking way to open up the show. Seth won the title. And that was that. It was just a nice little unpredictable way to start the show. I'm like, okay, that caught me off guard, but I kind of liked it. Good stuff. I thought maybe because they did it first, maybe they would revisit it and do something later in the show. But that didn't happen, which I'm fine with. I thought it was just a really cool, fun way to open up the show. Not the best match in the world, obviously, but fun for what it was. But that leads us into AJ Styles versus Randy Orton, a match of clashing styles, pun intended. And I thought it was pretty good. Unfortunately, there was a problem where the blinding lights in the ring were obstructing the live audience's view of the match, which is kind of an interesting production gaffe. But it wasn't obvious on TV. I could still see what was going on, so I was fine, obviously. And I thought the match was pretty good. I thought AJ and Orton, as I expected, they had a nice clashing of styles type of match where they inflicted their own different movesets on each other, and I thought it was overall pretty good. Not a classic by any means. I wish they didn't do any finisher kickouts. Or AJ kicked out of the RKO at one point, and Orton kicked out of the springboard 450. You know, it's one of those things with WrestleMania where it just seems like every match you expect a finisher kick out. I'm like, guys, you didn't really need to do it here. This isn't exactly like a main event caliber match or storyline. You could have just had, you know, a perfectly fine normal match without having to do finisher kickouts. Because that really takes away from it when you see it later in the show. You really should save that for the matches that really, really warrant it based on their build-up. But in any case, minor complaint. I thought the match itself was pretty good. It was good to see AJ have a good match. It was good to see Orton not sleepwalk his way through a match for once. Good, solid stuff. You know, it's really all there is to say about it. I was happy AJ went over, obviously. AJ's my boy. I was shocked that they gave away like the springboard RKO spots on free TV before WrestleMania. You think that would have been something they would have saved for Mania, but whatever. I mean, they got so much television time, they don't even know what to do with it. But anyway, I thought AJ and Orton had a pretty good match. I really enjoyed it. Next up was it the SmackDown Tag Title match? Yeah, all right. It was the Fatal 4-Way for the SmackDown Tag Team Championship. The Usos defending against Aleister Black and Ricochet, who pulled double duty this weekend. Rusev and Shinsuke Nakamura with Lana, who's looking fine tonight, by the way. Who also, horrible performer in the Battle Royal. She sucked in that match. But anyway, I digress. Versus The Bar, Sheamus and Cesaro. A 4-way tag, it's going to be what it's going to be, and you kind of just expect it to be what it is. It was a spot fest almost through and through. For that, it was fine. It was perfectly acceptable, one of those kind of matches. I don't think they did the dog pile spot, which I'm okay with. I'm like, oh, thank God they didn't do that. But it was perfectly solid for what it was. Again, I would prefer to have a tag title match with some level of story behind it. Would have preferred to get Usos versus Hardys, which they're doing on SmackDown tonight, which might even be going on right now as I'm filming this. But I thought the match was fine. Usos won, which I was totally okay with. Ricochet got to have a couple of really cool spots in there, and everything was fine. It was just one of those type of matches, and for that it was completely acceptable, and I was okay with it. And I like that the Usos retained, because they really, you look at that SmackDown tag division, it's like, really, who else is going to carry the tag belts? So that was that. And then we got Shane McMahon versus The Miz in a Falls Count Anywhere match, and this was fun. I dug this. It was pretty much what I expected it to be, except Shane didn't. I thought maybe Shane would do something insane where he would jump off the top of the stage because he's a lunatic. Fortunately, they didn't do anything that crazy. But I thought the match was fun. I thought it was fun to see Shane back to being what I knew him as back in the Attitude Era, which was a little weasel that kind of like didn't want to fight and was a little chicken shit. And that version of Shane is so much more fun to watch than him trying to be a tough guy. I'm like, come on, really? Like, come on. And those phony punches that he throws. But chicken shit Shane, I think, is way more fun. And they worked in Mrs. Dad, which actually got a little funny spot out of it. And they brawled through the crowd, which was fun. I mentioned on Twitter, it actually kind of reminded me of Triple H and Undertaker at WrestleMania 17, where they fought into like that production staging area and the scaffold. And the finish was actually the big spot of the match, which is surprisingly rare these days, where the big high spot is almost never the finish. But here, Miz took it a little too far. He superplexed Shane off the scaffold into the little padding area that they had underneath, which thank God nobody got hurt. You know, some people criticized it for being obvious padding. I'm like, hey, look, I'd rather have it not look as good, and then be safe than have it look great and then have them get hurt. That's just my take on it. But I thought the visual looked really cool. Because of the way they landed, though, both men were knocked out and Shane McMahon was on top of Miz and got the pin. So this allows the storyline to continue, I guess. I would have preferred it if Miz went over, but if they've got more story to tell, I guess I'm okay with that too. I thought the match was exciting and fun, and they didn't take it too far with the hardcore craziness. They just had a good, solid, intense fight of a match. And for that, it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. One of my more favorite matches on the show, actually. And then we got the 4-way for the Women's Tag Team Championships. The Iconics winning the belts against the Boss and Hug Connection, Tamina and Nia Jax, and the Divas of Doom, Natalya and Beth Phoenix. This match was not good. Kind of had all the problems of the earlier 4-way tag where it's just a spot fest, but somehow less coherent. At no point in the match was I even aware of who was legal. Like, I was like, who's even legal in this thing? I don't know. It was just a random series of moves, and not all of them were well executed. Tamina and Nia Jax in particular. It was a very kind of sloppy, haphazardly put together match that just didn't flow well. Even by the standards of like a filler match, this wasn't good. And I know I'm typically critical of these type of 4-way matches because they just don't do it for me. Too many bodies, too much craziness, not enough of a story, yada, yada, yada. I said it all with the first match, but this one was even worse than that. I'm like, ugh, that's not good. The Iconics won, which I half expected. I think I said it was either going to be them or Bayley and Sasha. I'm not going to say that I love the Iconics like a lot of other people. Like, they seem to be really over with the online community. I'm just like, I just kind of like, they're all right. Peyton's kind of hot. I mean, that's, but I guess they're not terrible, but I don't, fully, I haven't embraced them at all. And they came from NXT, and even down there, I was like, yeah, they're all right. There are other girls I like more, but, yeah, it is what it is. Now, I guess I should bring up that apparently there's something going on with Sasha Banks, which I don't know if there's been any updates to it, but she canceled an appearance the next morning after WrestleMania. And she's been posting some cryptic stuff on Twitter that she's got some personal issues that she's dealing with. I hope she's okay. I hope there's nothing too crazy going on with her. And I wish her the best. I mean, until we know more, it's really all I can say at this point. And next up, we had the WWE Championship match coming at basically the midway point of the show, which is kind of weird. But Kofi Kingston defeating Daniel Bryan to become the new WWE Champion. I thought this was the best thing on the show. I thought the match was very good. I thought it was a perfectly done, heel trying to keep down the babyface type of thing. I liked the antics with the New Day and Rowan where they basically canceled each other out towards the end of the match. Kofi got the big win, which was the feel-good moment of the show. I would even argue the emotional climax of WrestleMania as a whole. Felt satisfying. It felt great. It came off really well. Felt like the main event. More on that in a bit. And thought it was great. Good for Kofi. I just thought everything came off well here. I don't know how long Kofi's going to hold the belt. Personally, if it were up to me, it wouldn't be too long. But I'm the type of guy that's like, faces shouldn't have the belt that long. I'm like, no, it's got to be heels. It's always heels. 80-20 is like 80% of the time it should be heels. 20% of the time it should be faces. So, but we'll see where they go. I know on Raw the next night they did the whole thing where they teased a unification match and then they didn't do it. Okay. Like, if you want to do a unification match, I'm fully on board with that. But don't say you're going to do it on Raw and then not do it and then just do a random-ass tag match instead. Like, that's not the way to go about that. That's some bad bait and switching. Good bait and switching would be Austin McMahon on that episode of 98 Raw where they teased it was going to be Austin McMahon, but then Dude Love attacked Austin while he had one arm tied behind his back, and then you wondered, like, ooh, what's going on here? The story, the plot thickens. And see, that was a good bait and switch, but this one was not. But in any case, I thought the WWE title match was the best part of the show. I thought both guys were great. I loved the moment where New Day kind of like discarded the wooden homemade title belt that Daniel Bryan had personalized, did the unveiling, and there's the real WWE Championship belt. I thought that was a nice little like visual touch and a nice visual highlight for the show. Good stuff all around. Really no complaints here. I thought this was all really, really good. And like I said, this really felt like the main event of the show. And this is where we run into problems, because up to this point, I think WrestleMania has been pretty good, right? Opener was hot and furious and a nice little shock. AJ Orton was good. The Falls Count Anywhere match was good. The WWE title match felt like a main event. It was like, oh my god, Mania is killing it right now. I'm digging this. This is a really good show. Then the second half of the show happens, and nothing quite lived up to it. And there was a lot of stuff on there that fell flat. There was a lot of stuff that didn't work, and the length of the show really took over, and I got exhausted and less interested in the show as things went along. So it was really, this Mania was the tale of two halves, where I felt like all the best stuff was in the first half of the show. And the second half was very much kind of take it or leave it. Before I go into the matches from the second half, a couple of things that happened. I guess I should mention Elias's concert. I don't remember exactly where it took place, but it went pretty much how I expected it to. Elias is going to perform, and then he's going to get interrupted by either The Rock, The Undertaker, or John Cena. It was John Cena, who was in his Dr. Thugonomics gear and his music and everything, and actually had some good lines. I don't understand the point of feeding Elias to that. I don't understand the point. Why did Cena feel the need to be a dick and interrupt his concert? It's like, that's part of the problem with heels nowadays. They don't do anything that dastardly, so when they get their comeuppance, it doesn't feel warranted. So Cena just looks like an asshole. Like, why does he care if Elias is performing or not? And then Undertaker came back the next night on Raw. Sorry for those of you who were at WrestleMania that wanted to see Undertaker. Personally, I didn't miss him, but that's neither here nor there. And he came out and attacked Elias. I'm like, what the fuck did Elias do to you? Like, what is going on here? You know, when I was a kid, Rick Martel blinded Jake Roberts. Everyone wanted Jake Roberts to rip his fucking face off. And I could sit here and list countless examples of that type of shit, where the heels did something to warrant the wrath of the baby faces. And when I see stuff like this, it's like you're encouraging the faces to just be bullies, and that's it. But hey, whatever. The Elias concert, it was just an excuse to kill time and nothing more. We also got a backstage bit with the SNL guys as they were checked on by Dr. Hall and Dr. Nash. Always good to see Hall and Nash, I guess. Nash looked like he was enjoying that bit way too much, and they were in the 5 seconds they were on screen, they were way funnier than the SNL guys were, but, you know, still, it could have done without that segment. We also got a 7-second dance break, which I don't get. I really don't get it. And I'm not trying to be an asshole. I'm not trying to be a sourpuss. I just don't get it. Again, to make another comparison to the Attitude Era, you know, the 5-second pose. For the benefit of those with flash photography, the 5-second poses that Edge and Christian used to do. That was done because it was heels being assholes, and heels being obnoxious, and it fit Edge and Christian's persona that they had crafted for themselves to do something like that. So that worked. But here it's just two people dance randomly, and that's it. And apparently that's funny. How? I don't get it. Like, I don't get it. I don't understand it. Maybe I'm just an old, you know, sourpuss motherfucker. Who knows? I don't know. So that happened. But now let's get into the actual matches that happened in the second half. We got the United States title match, Samoa Joe successfully defending against Rey Mysterio in about a minute. I did not care about this match going into it, so the fact that they kept it short, I was okay with. They did it because Rey was hurt. It's fine. Give the title holder a big win, or a dominating win at Mania, because I mentioned in my preview that Joe has looked like shit on TV, where he's just losing. So give him a dominant win. Keep it short and simple. Whatever. I didn't care either way, to be perfectly honest. I'm not overly invested in Joe, regardless, so at least it was short. That was really all I have to say about it. Then we got Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre, with Roman Reigns' grand return following the bout with leukemia. And this match sucked. This match was boring. It was, you know, it felt like, and I can't speak for the audience that was there, it feels like the fans are still not invested in Roman Reigns, but they don't want to boo him because they'll be booing a guy with cancer, or a guy who beat cancer, and they don't want to do that. So they just don't react at all. And that feels like what was going on here. They're still not invested in Roman Reigns as a character. And I don't think anybody saw Drew McIntyre as a legitimate threat to him. Again, I thought the match was very dull, very plotting, very uninteresting. And then Roman just won. And it was like, well, all right. Well, at least he didn't main event this year. I mean, there's that. At least there's that. So Roman doesn't have a shitty WrestleMania main event under his belt this year. But yeah, this match sucked and was a complete waste of time. Then we got Triple H and Batista in the No Holds Barred match, which, okay, can we just talk about Triple H and how overindulgent his WrestleMania entrances always are? I mean, the WrestleMania entrance is becoming less and less of a thing. Like, less and less guys are having those really cool entrances. But goddamn, Triple H has always got to have his. And he comes out into Mad Max Fury Road, and I made Mario Kart jokes on Twitter, and he looked ridiculous. It looks silly. Looks stupid. And I'm like, Trips, how far are you up your own ass that you thought that that was a good idea? That you thought any of that was a good idea? And it went on forever, but he has to have his really special, you know, red carpet treatment at WrestleMania every year, and his match always has to go half an hour long because it's Triple H, regardless of whether or not it should go that long. And also, I should also mention Batista tripping on his entrance was like unintended hilarity. It's like, oh, the spirit of the Shockmaster will never die. But anyway, the match itself. I'm not going to say I hated it. It's not one of Triple H's worst. I'm seeing online it's getting some scathing reviews. I'm like, guys, this isn't even close to Triple H's worst. Not even close. Some of the shit that I've watched with him, but I won't say I liked it either. It was kind of, if I had to compare it to any previous Triple H match, ironically, it was the one in the same stadium. The match with Lesnar at 29, where it's like, I didn't hate it, but I didn't like it either. It just ate up time, and that's basically all it did. It was just a bunch of white noise from start to finish. There were some cool things that they did. Like, I thought the stuff they did with the tools early on was kind of like potentially grotesque, although him ripping the nose ring off and there being no blood, I'm like, nobody thought that that was a bad idea but anyway. Yeah, so they did a couple of cool things. The ending with Flair fell flat to me because it just kind of felt rushed. Yeah, the one thing in a Triple H match that's rushed was the finish. So, like, yeah, it's, you know, I wish you'd shaved like 10 minutes off of this thing, but yeah, parts of it were really slow and listless, and then other parts of it, they did something with the steel steps or with, like, the announce table that kind of, like, made it less boring. So it was one of those type of matches where it's like, it's not terrible, it's not the worst thing ever, but it's not something I ever need to see again. It's kind of like Aquaman. My exact feelings on the movie Aquaman. It was just like, look, I didn't hate it. I'm not going to sit here and trash it necessarily, but I didn't enjoy myself either. It was just kind of something that happened in front of me, and now it's over. And that's it. And of course, Triple H won. I had the idea when Ric Flair came out. I was like, oh, what if... Immediately, it just clicked in my brain. What if Batista never attacked Flair? Because it happened behind closed doors. What if he never attacked him, and this whole thing was just a ruse for Batista and Flair to screw over Triple H and cost him his career? I'm like, oh my god, what a twist that would be. But no, they didn't do that. Triple H just won. And what was the point of him putting his career up on the line if he was just going to win anyway? It makes no sense. It's pointless. I mean, and also, Triple H is a part-timer anyway. Like, how many more matches is he going to have this year? 1? 2? I mean, did you really need to have him put his in-ring career? Are we really going to be losing much if he puts his in-ring career on the line? I didn't care for the step being there, because if Triple H is just going to go over anyway, what's the point? And even if Triple H hadn't gone over, it's like, all right, what kind of a mess is that? Because Triple H only works like 2 or 3 times a year anyway, so it's not like it'd be that big of a loss. So I don't know. So that happened. That's the best way to sum that match up. That happened. Triple H and Batista. Batista has announced his in-ring retirement, which, good for him. I wish Batista all the best. Thank you for the good memories. Because Batista was somebody that I actually kind of liked back in the day when he first became big. Mainly because I hated John Cena, and Batista was kind of like the WWE throwing us a bone. It's like, okay, you don't like this lame-ass John Cena character, we'll give you this badass big motherfucker that kills people. Is that okay? I'm like, alright, sure, that's fine. So Batista was kind of my guy for a while. Not that I was like the biggest Batista mark on the planet, but he was the world champion that I supported over Cena, because Batista was just way cooler. And, you know, he's also from DC, close to a hometown boy. I'm Maryland, so, you know, I've always appreciated Batista. I'm not going to sit here and say that he's like one of my all-time favorites or anything, but very much like what I've said about guys like Lex Luger and various other guys that kind of have negative connotations associated with their wrestling careers, I kind of go, well, he had his moments. Luger as U.S. champ was fucking great. I think Luger's one of the best U.S. champs that has ever existed. Personally. I loved his feud with Sting. And Batista's another one of those guys that's like, yeah, you can sit there and point to, like, shit that didn't work, but I enjoyed his WrestleMania match with Undertaker. I enjoyed his first feud with Triple H back in 2005 for the most part. Not entirely, but for the most part it was alright. I liked, the matches themselves weren't great, but I enjoyed the feud with JBL. I liked his work with, his feud with Cena was good. One of Cena's better rivalries. So Batista, again, he's one of those guys who had his moments. And also, he put over Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania and had that great match in the main event, you know. So, yeah, so thank you, Batista, for all that you did and all the good things that you did. And congratulations on the movie career, because you are killing it right now as an actor. I thought he stole the show in Blade Runner. He's only in one scene. Blade Runner was great, and he was the best thing in a great movie. Personal opinion. But in any case, I think I've talked way more about the Triple H match than I should have. So let's go into the next match. Baron Corbin defeating Kurt Angle in Kurt Angle's retirement match. God, this sucked. I'm glad that Angle realized that he needed to retire, because everything I've seen on TV and this match, it's like, dude, you do not have it anymore. You are done. You are done. And so I'm glad that Kurt Angle decided to step away and realize that his time was up. And that's a good thing. Now, the practice of what was in play here is sound. Have Kurt Angle put over the new guy and give that guy a rub, put over the young guy, and go out on your back, which is like the time-honored tradition, right? The problem is that they gave it to Baron Corbin, who they have booked into oblivion already. I mean, Jesus Christ. They made him the goddamn constable, for crying out loud. And it's like, who the fuck cares about Baron Corbin? Like, how did he get that one? Why didn't they give it to McIntyre? McIntyre would have been a better pick for that. But, and I'm not trying to shit on Baron Corbin. I'm just trying to shit on, like, WWE creatives. Like, they did not make Baron Corbin interesting enough to be worthy of Kurt Angle's last opponent or to benefit from a win against Kurt Angle. I know some people, wanted a match between Kurt Angle and John Cena. I suggested, before they announced that Corbin would be the opponent, I suggested that was what they were going to do. That was my prediction. They didn't do that. I don't mind not getting that match because, again, it's kind of like, all right, so a legend faces a legend and one legend wins and nobody benefits from it. And it's like, it was one of my complaints about WrestleMania 26. Even though Shawn's send-off was great and the match with Taker was great, who ended Shawn Michaels' career? Undertaker. Does Undertaker benefit from that at all? No. He's already a legend. So, this potential, like, star-making win of ending Shawn Michaels' career, you gave it to a guy who didn't need it. And that would have happened here. It's like, all right, Cena beats Angle and beats Angle in his last match. What the fuck does that do for John Cena? Absolutely nothing. And even if Angle goes over, it's like, who the fuck cares? Like, So, the practice of what they did is sound. They just picked the wrong guy to do it, because it's a guy that they already ruined a long time ago. And I can't believe that, like, Baron Corbin was, like, the choice. I could sit here, like, Bobby Lashley would have been a better pick. Because that's what TNA did, basically. Bobby Roode. I would have taken, literally, like, Shinsuke Nakamura. Like, literally anybody. Like, but a guy, I say Nakamura. Nakamura, they booked into oblivion, too. So, who the fuck knows? But, yeah, the match was bad. According to this, it went 6 minutes and 5 seconds, which is probably about 3 minutes and 5 seconds too long. It was not good. Sad for Kurt. But once again, thank you so much, Kurt Angle, for everything that you gave us. Not the best send-off, and you didn't look great doing it anyway, but I'll remember the good times when it comes to Kurt Angle, because he gave us a lot of really good stuff. So I could sit here all day and list Kurt Angle matches that I enjoyed, both in WWE and in TNA. I would argue that overall he had better matches in TNA, believe it or not. But, great stuff from Kurt Angle's career, not so much this match. Then we got the Intercontinental title match, Finn Balor coming out as the Demon and defeating Bobby Lashley. Is it just me, or does the Demon not have any mystique anymore? I don't know if that's WWE creative just ruining the Demon, like they ruin everything that comes out of NXT, but I don't know. So I wasn't overly interested in seeing the Demon. Balor won, which we all expected. The nicest thing I can say about this match is thank God they kept it short. It didn't drag. They just got it out of the way and moved on to the main event. I'm like, all right, cool beans. So that brings us to the closing match, the main event. Becky Lynch versus Ronda Rousey versus Charlotte Flair, with both the Raw Women's title and the SmackDown Women's title on the line. Winner takes all. Now, Joan Jett was one of my favorite parts of the show. Seeing her was great, and seeing her perform was great. And unlike Lemmy, at least she remembered all the words. Full respect to Lemmy, but one of my favorite Mania gaffes of all time. It tickles me. Is him forgetting the words to the game and he just sang it, and it still sounded good. Even when he fucked up the words, it still sounded good. It's like, oh, Lemmy, you're a legend. But anyway, Joan Jett sounded great, performed great, and I was happy with that. So Joan Jett was actually one of my favorite parts of the show. So that was cool for Ronda's entrance. And then Charlotte got this entrance where she came in via helicopter, and it was like, all right, this looks like it's going to be really cool. But then the helicopter landed outside the stadium, and then she just entered the arena like normal. And actually, they got Ronda's introduction out first before Charlotte entered the arena. And I was like, that felt a little disjointed. I don't know. It's one of those things that sounded and probably looked really cool on paper, but I think WWE production maybe overdid it a little bit, and it didn't come off as cool. The Shield had a helicopter entrance on an episode of Raw years ago, and that looked amazing. And I was like, oh my god, this is so cool. But here it just looked like something out of a bad movie. And I don't know if it's because they kept cutting to Charlotte inside the chopper. I don't know if it's because it took too long, or maybe it's because they did entrances after the helicopter landed when Charlotte should have just gone straight into the arena after that. But I don't know what it was, but that entrance didn't get over as well as I think they wanted it to. And then poor Becky got no special entrance. I was like, oh, how do you compete with a helicopter and Joan Jett? You can't. And poor Becky didn't even try. So, first time ever that the women are main eventing WrestleMania, and I don't want to be the asshole. I really don't want to be the asshole. It didn't deliver. I'm sorry. It didn't deliver. And really, it's not that it was a terrible match. Lord knows. Kind of like what I said about Triple H and Batista. God, I have walked through the Valley of Shadows when it comes to the worst of the worst in WrestleMania history. Like, you look at Triple H's WrestleMania resume, that is like just a gigantic suicide note if you want to watch all of his WrestleMania matches. I mean, it's insanely bad. So, the match with Batista here, honestly not as bad as some of his worst, although not good. Good is not a word I would use, but it's not as bad as his worst. Here, it's like, look, I have seen the worst of the worst when it comes to WrestleMania main events. I've seen the worst when it comes to endings to WrestleMania. The match itself was going fine. The action was pretty good. There were a couple blown spots here and there, but there were a couple of cool things that happened. A lot of cool, like, triple-double spots, and Ronda telling Charlotte that she chops like a bitch, I thought was pretty neat. Like, that was a fun, like, quotable line. And the match was going fine. And then they brought the table in, and everything fell apart. And I don't know what it is with Charlotte. I don't know what it is. But whenever they tried to do some kind of a stunt in her matches, it just almost always fails. I think back to the Hell in a Cell with Sasha, where the table didn't break there. That was a problem. The WrestleMania match where it was a four-way, and the finish hinged on Charlotte getting that turnbuckle pad off, and she just could not fucking do it, and it blew the ending of the match. And here they work a table in, and the table, I believe, was supposed to eliminate Charlotte from the finish and let it come down to Becky and Ronda. And the table didn't break. It kind of like cracked a little bit in the corner. I'm like, oh, that didn't get over the way they wanted it to, and didn't convey that idea that Charlotte was taken out of the match. It kind of reminded me of Hulk Hogan at Earthquake at SummerSlam 1990, where Hogan slammed Earthquake on the table, but the table didn't break. The leg kind of broke, and the table just kind of fell over. I'm like, oh, that didn't get over the way they wanted it to. So once again, a table doesn't break in a Charlotte match, unfortunately. And then they go into the finish where Ronda and Becky are doing something, and Becky just rolls her up and gets an out of the fuck nowhere pin, where Ronda's shoulder was even up, and I'm like, when the bell rang, I was like, wait, what? That's the finish? And I was like, uh-oh, I think somebody fucked up. And I've seen conflicting reports. Meltzer reported that everything went as planned. Which I don't know if I believe that, but now there's a bunch of rumors going around that the referee of the match got fined for counting the shoulders down when he wasn't supposed to. And, it did not come off well, that ending. And I was like, well, that's a flat ending to what was supposed to be Becky Lynch's coronation. Look, to paint the full picture here, look, I am in favor of roll-up finishes. I've said I'm an advocate for that, because I've said before that some people say that all roll-up finishes are bad. I'm like, no, because you got to have those in matches, and they have to win once in a while, because otherwise why would the wrestler do them? Why would any wrestler do roll-ups if they never got win? They've got to win once in a while. And a couple of great WrestleMania roll-up finishes actually came at WrestleMania 8. Two of my favorite matches in Mania history. Bret Hart versus Roddy Piper. Bret's bloodied. He's battered. Piper's going to hit him with the ring bell. Piper has second thoughts. Throws the ring bell away. Locks in a sleeper hold. Bret, he's losing blood. He's out of it. He's got no choice. He kicks up on the corner. Falls on top of Piper and rolls him up for the 3. Great finish. Outstanding finish. Randy Savage, Ric Flair. Perfect and Flair have been cheating the whole match. Elizabeth has gone out there. There's agents everywhere. It's chaos. It's a madhouse. Savage has been in the figure 4. His leg is shot to hell. Damaged beyond belief. The babyface seems completely out of it. He's over. He's done. As a last gasp, Savage gets a shot in and rolls up Flair, holds the tights. Which, again, what's good for the goose is good for the gander as far as I'm concerned, because Flair and Perfect cheated that whole match. But that was a great, like, kind of out-of-nowhere win for the babyface, because that was really the only way he was going to win. This felt anticlimactic, and if I had to compare it to anything, it kind of reminded me, although this was better than what I'm about to reference, JBL versus John Cena at WrestleMania 21. That match was so anticlimactic, and I felt so numb when it was over. Like, the fuck was, that can't be it. That can't be it. It was it. That's your ending. And, yeah, unlike this triple threat, JBL and John Cena didn't close the show. So the closing impression on a show that went past midnight. Apparently, I've heard reports that people got stuck at the arena because the train services stopped. That's how late the show went. And the last image was a botched or potentially fucked up pinfall in the main event. Now, there's some speculation that they're going to use this to set up Becky and Ronda down the road, which I'm okay with that, but there's a better way to do that. On this night, that finish didn't work. It really didn't work, and really left me feeling sour about the whole thing. And I was kind of hoping, because like I said, pretty much everything after the WWE title match either fell flat or didn't work for me. And I was kind of counting on the women to finish strong, and they didn't. And it just, the finish got blown, and that's unfortunate. Again, I'm not going to sit here and say it's like the worst WrestleMania main event of all time, but they were positioned, even at the end of an 8-hour show, even after, with an exhausted crowd, you know, they were positioned to have like this history-making match. They were given all the storyline, all the build-up, most of the promotion. They were in the spotlight, and the match just didn't come through, and it's unfortunate. Again, I'm not trying to piss on everybody's parade. One thing I will praise them for, I like that they resisted the urge to do the curtain call bullshit. Because you saw it in Evolution. You see it almost every time the women do anything special, where all the women will come out on the stage and hug each other and be like, oh, it's great, we work together, blah, blah, blah. And I don't like that because, again, it kind of feeds into what I was saying a few videos ago, where I was like, stop telling me that this is fake. Again, I know it's fake. I know it's scripted. I'm not an idiot, but when I'm watching the fictionalized story unfold, I like to have the illusion preserved for me while I'm watching the show. And doing that curtain call shit just kind of kills it for me. And the women have been doing it a lot, especially like things like Evolution. And I like to think of these performers, their characters, I like to think of them as individuals with their own hates, their own issues, their own wants and desires and goals and everything else. And to me, it was nice that they just let Becky have her moment. Just let her hold the belts up and let that be the closing image of WrestleMania. Instead of bringing all the women out there and letting them all share the stage. Because to me, it's like they really need to get past that with the women, where it's like, yes, it's great that the women have more roles in wrestling now than they've ever had before. And yes, it's great that they're main eventing and everything. But we need to get past that, like, isn't it great that this is happening, and just let them be characters and individuals with their own wants, desires, and goals, and have that real conflict that really makes wrestling work. And it's hard to do that when all the women are hugging each other. I don't like it. Sorry. But it looks like Becky Lynch is going to be feuding with Lacey Evans, who had a random appearance on this show yet again. I do not get her character at all. I've said that before. I don't get what they're doing with her. She just comes out randomly, waves, and leaves, and I'm supposed to hate her for it. And it's like, you're not building any intrigue. I don't hate you for it. Like, it's just, I don't get it. I'm just perplexed by it, and I don't understand it. It's like, can't you film vignettes with her? Wouldn't that make more sense? If you're trying to build up her eventual debut, wouldn't that make more sense to do that? But anyway. So that's WrestleMania. Really, tale of two halves. I thought the first half of the show was great. Like, I would venture to say, like, this is looking like the best WrestleMania since 30. Like, this is looking like a really good show. Second half kind of fell off a cliff. And so, all right, let's call the first half an A, second half maybe a D. Let's meet in the middle and give it like a C+, let's say, because the first half of the show was really good. I really enjoyed the first half of the show, but as I got more fatigued and as more and more matches were being thrown on top of me and more and more of them were not delivering, I found myself becoming less and less interested in the show. And all the beers I was having certainly wasn't helping either. So that's WrestleMania 35 in a nutshell. Tale of two halves is the best way to describe it. Middle of the road WrestleMania yet again. I don't know if it's even possible to have a great show that's 8 hours long. I really don't even know if it's possible because it's just gotten... Oh boy, has it gotten long. In any case, that concludes WrestleMania 35. So let's talk about the other shows that happened this weekend. Let's go into NXT TakeOver New York, which happened 2 nights before, happened on Friday. And, we only had 5 matches, so this show was a lot shorter. Although each match was like half an hour long, so it was like a 3-hour show with only 5 matches. But, exciting show, pretty much from top to bottom. I don't think I loved it as much as everybody else did, but I did really, really enjoy it. And I'll talk about the things that I liked. The War Raiders versus Ricochet and Aleister Black for the NXT tag titles I thought was a very exciting tag match. The War Raiders got a big win over some of NXT's top guys over the course of the last couple years or so. So it was a big win for them. They got to retain the titles. I thought the match itself was very exciting, even if it had some of the tag team match tropes that I don't like the fucking dog pile spot. I did think it was a very exciting match and a very hot way to open up the show, and I was glad to see the War Raiders win. It was a nice send-off for Black and Ricochet as well. So overall, really well done. Hot opener, great stuff. Loved it. Then we move on to the second match on the show for the North American Championship. The Velveteen Dream defending against Matt Riddle. Everyone's going to disagree with me here. I thought they had the match of the night. Personally, I thought Dream and Riddle had the match of the night. 2 characters that the fans are invested in, 2 personalities that have connected with the audience. I loved Velveteen Dream's entrance. The Statue of Liberty, I thought that was great. And they went out there and had this awesome match of, once again, clashing styles with Dream and Riddle interjecting their own personalities into it. It didn't have to be a finisher fest to do it. They just went out there, had some really cool counters, really good character development throughout the course of the match where Dream was actually able to frustrate the normally calm, cool, and collected Matt Riddle. I think both guys are money. I think Matt Riddle is money. Like, that guy is... I think I made the comparison. He's got the personality of Rob Van Dam with a Kurt Angle or Brock Lesnar type of credibility behind him. I think he's great look. Seems to have taken to pro wrestling like a fish takes to water. Like, I think he's money. I thought the match that they had was excellent. Very exciting match. I was shocked that Velveteen Dream got the win. Pleasantly so. That was a roll-up finish that actually worked for me. And I popped for Dream getting the win, and I thought they had a really exciting match. I thought they had the match of the night. And again, I know everyone's going to disagree with me, and I'm probably going to get some major hate for what I'm about to say to the UK title match. Now, let's go right into that match. Pete Dunne losing the UK championship to Walter, ending his over 2-year streak as champion, I think it was. Pete Dunne's insanely long title reign. I've heard rumblings that Pete Dunne might be moved up to the main roster. I don't know if he's a good fit for the main roster, but in any case. So this is the first time I ever saw Walter, and I was intrigued by him. Because when I saw him at the end of that UK TakeOver special, and I'd heard so much about him and heard all this buzz, I was like, alright, big as fuck motherfucker. I like that. I like big motherfucking, big guys. I like Bad Luck Fale. I liked 97 Kane when he first showed up. I loved Vader. I was a huge Vader mark. I was a big mark for Earthquake when I was a kid. I liked Andre the Giant. I liked Who else was I thinking of? Although he's not necessarily a super heavyweight, I was a big fan of early, like, mid-2000s Samoa Joe, like, you know, 03 to 06 or so. I thought Joe was fantastic. So I was really excited for Walter, and I really wanted to love him. I didn't love it. I don't know what it was. Like, I just didn't love it. I think, if I had to put it into words, I think my problem was I wanted Walter to be like a fucking beast that went out there and just dominated Pete Dunne for most of the match, a la Brock Lesnar and John Cena at SummerSlam. It didn't need to be that one-sided, but kind of cut from that same cloth. The match was way too 50-50 for me, and went way too long for me, and didn't really feel like it had much of a flow, and got very repetitive. Because I think they did the finger-breaking spot like 4 or 5 times, and they did the trading shot spot many times, and yeah, it just, by the end of it, I was just kind of like, all right, guys, we can wrap this up. I'm kind of ready to go home now. And look, I'm not saying it was a terrible match. I'm just saying that I was disappointed because I thought Walter was kind of going to blow my socks off, and I didn't feel like I got that. And again, I'm sure I'm going to get hate for saying it because a lot of people are saying that it seems split between what the match of the night was from TakeOver. It was either this or the main event, and I'm going to piss everybody off by saying neither. It was Dream and Riddle. Dream and Riddle stole the show, goddammit. Anyway, the UK title match, I can't stress this enough. I really wanted to love this match, and I just, it was just okay to me. And this is the second or third time I've watched a Pete Dunne match where I felt like, I kind of felt the same way, where it's like he's going too long, he's getting a little repetitive. Like, who did he face at the TakeOver special? Was it Zach Gibson? And I felt like they kept doing the spot in the corner, and they just kept repeating it, and I think they kept fucking it up. And I was like, what is going on? This is so awkward. But, again, I'm not trying to shit on Pete Dunne. I'm not trying to shit on Walter. I'm not trying to piss on everybody's parade. I'm just giving my personal opinions on the match. I didn't think it was as great as I wanted it to be. So I consider myself disappointed in this. Sorry, don't mean to piss on everyone's parade, but that's just my opinion. And then we got the women's 4-way with Shayna Baszler successfully defending against Io Shirai, Kairi Sane, and the not undefeated Bianca Belair in a 4-way for the NXT Women's title. Shayna got the win, which I'm okay with. I would prefer her to lose the title in a far more exciting match than this. I thought the match was fine. It was good. It was a basic 4-way match. You know, some of the girls did really cool things to each other. I thought it was nice how they built up tension between the Sky Pirates throughout the match until they came to blows. I thought Belair's double Death Valley Driver spot was pretty cool. I thought they did some cool things, and then Shayna got the win, so I was okay with that. So really, not one of the most dynamic women's title matches in NXT history, but a perfectly solid match to have on the show where it was really the least interesting match on the card. I thought it was good in its low expectations, and I'm not trying to take anything away from any of the 4 girls. I'm just saying, storyline-wise and build-up-wise, there just wasn't a whole lot going for this match, and despite that, they had a good match. So, really not a whole lot else to say about that. But then we go into the main event, the 2 out of 3 falls match for the vacant NXT title as Johnny Gargano took on Adam Cole. Now, Dave Meltzer said that this might be the best match in WWE history. A comment that, look, I'm not going to say that I hate Dave Meltzer. I don't hate him. I'm not Bruce Pritchard. I'm not Eric Bischoff. I'm not going to cuss the guy out. I'm just saying that he and I are on completely different wavelengths when it comes to critiquing this shit. And I guess he has more credibility than me because he's been doing it for so much longer. But with me, I thought the match was going really well. I thought the first 2 falls, it was building a nice, solid pace throughout. And it was like, all right, tied at 1 fall apiece. Let's go into the finish. And it was going well up until it became one of the most ridiculous finisher fests I have ever seen. To the point that I feel like I owe John Cena an apology for all the shit that I've given him over the years. Because for John Cena, like, there were matches that he had where he would kick out of everything. The one that everybody references is SummerSlam 2010 with the Nexus, where he got DDT'd on the floor and made a comeback and beat everybody. And it's like, what the fuck? My friends and I, we had a joke with each other. What would happen if you shot John Cena in the face? He would kick out at 2. That we would just make fun of his matches constantly because it just got to a point where it was ridiculous. The one that sticks out to me was a cage match that he had with Dolph Ziggler on Raw, where Ziggler had AJ Lee helping him, had Big E helping him, hit like 19 finishers, and he still couldn't beat John Cena. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like, it gets to a point where it becomes so ridiculous that I lose my ability to believe what's going on. And another example of that was Royal Rumble 2002. I know I've referenced this match before. The Rock versus Chris Jericho. Fantastic match up until they get into the finish where it's like, I think Jericho beats Rock with a low blow, a chair shot, interference from Christian. There's a ref bump in there somewhere, and it's just thing after thing after thing after thing after thing. And by the end of it, I'm just like, what, no shotgun? What, do you think you need to throw him in a shark tank first? I mean, what the fuck? But at least Jericho won. At least they did that. As ridiculous as it was, at least Jericho got the W. Now, I look at this match, Gargano and Cole, and Gargano kicked out of a finisher. He survived taking the fairy tale ending to an announce table. He took a goddamn Canadian Destroyer and kicked out at 2, which I love that the Canadian Destroyer has become a 2 kick out now. Because I'm seeing that more and more across the board in pro wrestling. And he survived the other members of the Undisputed Era coming out and interfering and fought all 4 of them off by himself. And it just got to a point where I was like, this is absolutely ridiculous. This is so cartoony that it's just, I've lost my ability to believe in it. And I'm not bashing, again, I love Adam Cole. I love Johnny Gargano. I've typically enjoyed those guys' matches. I wanted Cole to win the belt, but I knew that wasn't going to happen. But this match got so over the top and so ridiculous that it kind of knocked the match a few pegs down for me. So, what many are saying is like a great match. Meltzer calls it maybe the best match in WWE history. Okay. And some fans might call it the match of the year. To me, it was just a good match because it just got so ridiculous at the end that I kind of lost my ability to kind of believe what was going on. If I had to make a movie comparison, it kind of reminded me of Black Panther, where a lot of solid build-up, a lot of solid stuff. Michael B. Jordan fucking killed it. I love that man, and he's great in almost everything he's in. I say almost because Fan 4 Stick happened, but he's great in almost everything he's in, and he was great in this. Everything's building up well, and then you get into a climactic battle that is off-the-wall ridiculous, where you've got war rhinos, you've got too many characters to follow, and you've got Bilbo Baggins trying to save the world by playing a video game. It's like, guys, time out. Just give me T'Challa and Warmonger. What are you doing? Like, I don't care. I literally don't care about any of this other stuff. Just give me T'Challa and Warmonger. You guys, you overcomplicated this needlessly. You just give me the one-on-one fight. That's all I need. But even that looked like shit because it was all CGI and looked really bad. And I'm like, dude, have you seen Michael B. Jordan? Did you watch Creed? I know you watched Creed because you fucking directed it, Ryan Coogler. You know, that motherfucker, you put him in a fight scene, it's gonna be fucking great because he's jacked as shit. I know, I love Michael B. Jordan. I can't gush over him enough. But anyway, that's my comparison where it's like, everything was going well, ending, but, you know, overall a good experience. I thought the match was exciting. I thought it was good. Just the overbooking of the finish really kind of took away from it for me. But it's a good main event. I don't consider it one of the best matches in WWE history because they overdid it. To me, it's like if I were going to describe a match as indie-rific, like the ending, like 5 to 10 minutes of that match, totally indie-rific. And that's a shame. But again, because I like both guys. Adam Cole, baby. I like him. But in any case, that concluded NXT TakeOver. Like I said, I don't think I loved it as much as everybody else did. And the 2 matches that everybody's fawning all over are the 2 matches that I was kind of like, you know, the UK title match, main event, it's not as good as people are saying it is. But Dream and Riddle was fucking awesome. I love that match. Loved almost everything about it. And I thought the opening tag match was very good. I thought the women's match was good. And there was nothing terrible on the show. I know most of what I'm saying is nitpicking. It's just the UK title match didn't live up to my expectations. And the main event, I don't think is as good as people saying it is. But in any case, NXT TakeOver I thought was a very good show. Really good show to watch this weekend. I'm glad I watched it. But let's go into the Saturday night show. Let's go into the G1 Supercard ROH in New Japan running in Madison Square Garden, which very cool for them, and really important that they were able to do this and they were able to pull it off. I thought the production on the show most of the night was very good. I'm going to have a lot to say about production when I talk about United We Stand, but production was mostly great. I thought the show looked great. It was great to see that kind of a crowd in that kind of a venue for a Ring of Honor / New Japan show. I thought the show overall came off really, really well. My biggest knock on the show would be that, like WrestleMania, it was too long. I think WrestleMania went about 8 hours. This show went about, and I'm counting the pre-show in this, but this show went about 5.5, 6 hours, which is really long, really, really long. So not as long as WrestleMania, but still really long. And look, if you're going to have the shows that go this long, and here's my rule of thumb, if your show is going to go over 3 hours, could you please have an intermission? Because, I think of other sporting events, football games have a halftime, and they're nowhere near as long as these wrestling shows. Baseball games have the 7th inning stretch. Just, you got to give us something to catch our breath with. And actually, Supercard of Honor last year had an intermission. I was totally okay with it because it allowed me time to kind of get myself together after watching so much action in the first half of the show. So, an intermission wouldn't kill you. Just a 30-minute break, anything to kind of let me compose myself and get me ready, let me re-energize myself for what's to come later. Because you can even feel in this show, it is definitely apparent at WrestleMania, and you could definitely feel it here. The crowd was getting exhausted after the show. There was just just way too long. And I think just have a nice 30-minute intermission, that would help fix that. But other than that, I really enjoyed the show. I thought it was really good. Excuse me. Let's start with the pre-show. The 30-man, or 31-man, if you count Yano's or Colt Cabana's entrance, so whoever was the official entrant there, I don't know. The Honor Rumble on the pre-show, which was won by Kenny King, and the winner would get a Ring of Honor World Title shot. This was a hoot. I honestly enjoyed this way more than I thought I would. At first, I was like, oh, it's just another one of those Rumbles where they're just going to throw a bunch of people out there, and it'll be cool that they get on the card. It's perfectly acceptable, warm up the crowd before the big show type of match. And that's what those matches are designed to do. But they did some things in there that I really enjoyed. We got Minoru Suzuki being a badass. We got a little bit of an interaction between Ishii and Suzuki. We got a funny bit with Yano where he came out and then told Colt Cabana to take his place. And he took over on commentary while Cabana went in and entered the Rumble. And they were asking him on commentary, it's like, Yano, why don't you want to go out there and compete? He's like, oh, scary. And Yano's a hoot. I love Yano. Again, I know he's not everybody's cup of tea, but I think he's hilarious. And it was cool to get to see him. It was cool to see Liger. And actually, my big mark-out moment of the whole thing, Great Muta came out as a surprise entrant at number 30. And I got to see Great Muta and Jushin Thunder Liger share the ring with each other. I'm like, oh my God, has that happened since their match back in the 90s? Because that is such a cool visual to see the Great Muta and Jushin Liger in the ring together. I got to see Haku again, which I love Haku. And this is an effective way to use legends. Don't let them go out there and steal a spot on the main card and stay out there for half an hour. That's not the way to do it. But put them in a match like this. They can get a nice nostalgia pop out of it, and because they're sharing the ring with 20 other people, they're not as exposed. And it came down to Muta and Liger versus the Kingdom, and then it came down to Muta and Liger, which that alone was like, oh, that's cool, Muta and Liger. And then Kenny King came out. He had been hiding under the ring, and he eliminated both of them, and so Kenny King got the win. So Young Guy gets the win. Legends get to have a little bit of a moment. And overall, I had fun. I really enjoyed the New Japan Rumble. Not saying it's one of the best matches of the weekend or anything like that. But as a pre-show, warm me up for the main show type of thing, I thought it was fun. And again, I popped big for Great Muta. That was a very nice surprise. Very well done. And again, in a battle royal like this, you can get away with that type of stuff. And yeah, it is weird, though, that 3 pre-show battle royals, they all did the same spot. That is so weird. So fucking weird. But let's get into the main card. We had the winner-takes-all match for the Ring of Honor TV title and the Never Openweight Championship. Jeff Cobb defeating Will Ospreay. Very cool match. This is pretty much exactly what I expected it to be. Jeff Cobb being the power guy, Ospreay being the high-flying guy. They went out there, had this really cool match. Really enjoyed it. Great way to open up the show. Jeff Cobb got the win. The Tour of the Islands off the top rope looked really cool. I wish they had just made that the finish. That's another, like, old man yelling at the sky type thing, but I see it a lot where they'll do, like, a really cool variation on the finisher, and then they just pick him up and hit the regular finisher and ends on the regular finish. Like, no, end it on the cool spot. End it on the really cool one, like the one that you did off the top rope. But, yeah, and that's nitpicky, but I thought the match itself was very exciting and very cool, and I liked it. Next thing we had Roosh defeating Dalton Castle in like 15 seconds. I liked this. I think it continued Dalton Castle's like character development and his frustration, which was shown when he beat up the boys post-match. It's like, ooh, where is this going? What does the future hold for Dalton Castle now? And it continues Roosh's undefeated streak in Ring of Honor right now, and they can do something with that down the road. So Roosh got to keep his streak, Dalton Castle got to develop as a character, and thank God one match on the show was short. So, easy peasy lemon squeezy, I was completely fine with this. So, moving on to the next one, we had Kelly Klein defeating Mayu Iwatani to become the new Women of Honor champion. The match was better than I expected. They did blow that reverse Rana spot, but other than that, I thought the match was pretty good. Not great by any means, but considering where my expectations were, I thought it was a pretty solid match. I complained about the Women of Honor division constantly. Thank God they put the belt on Kelly, who probably should have always been the title holder from day one. And post-match, they did something kind of cool where the beautiful people, Velvet Sky and Angelina Love, came out and confronted Kelly Klein. Mandy Leon then came down and beat the crap out of Kelly Klein as all three girls just basically took their shots at Kelly. Revealed themselves to be the new group, the Allure, and now the Women of Honor's division has a storyline, and they have fucking heels. Good. They have something. It's something, because before it was nothing. It was just random-ass matches for the sake of having random-ass matches, and that was it. It's like, isn't it great that we've got women on the show? It's like, yeah, you know it would be even better if they had fucking stories. Could you tell stories with them? Because really, and again, I think the comparison I made, it was like the light heavyweight division when Taka was the champion in 97, 98, where it was like, Taka has a match on pay-per-view against some random fuck that you've never heard of. And that's the division. That's it. So if we can move away from that and actually have some kind of storyline direction for the Women of Honor, I think that's a really good thing. And Velvet Sky and Angelina Love coming out was a nice little surprise. Good stuff. I was okay with this. It's like, at least it gives the women something. And hopefully they're able to develop that into something better moving forward. Time will tell, we shall see. But I'll definitely take something over nothing. And then we had what was looking like it was going to be the worst part of the show. Then they kind of saved themselves. So the rapper Mega Ran came out and started singing this awful song. Bully Ray beat him up, thank God, and to the delight of the crowd, even though Bully's supposed to be a heel. Juice Robinson had gotten beaten up backstage, and he was supposed to be Bully's opponent. So now that he's been beaten up, Bully is once again making the match an open challenge. Out comes Flip Gordon. I'm like, all right, cool. Flip gets to be on the show. That's great. I love that. All right, so Flip Gordon versus Bully Ray. But then Silas Young and Shane Taylor come out, and it becomes a 3-on-1 beatdown. And then Juice Robinson and who was the other Lifeblood member? It was Mark Haskins. They come out and even the odds, and then it becomes, out of nowhere, it becomes a 6-man street fight. This was becoming just a random free-for-all and just a mess, and I was already ready to shit on this. But once they actually got to the 6-man match, it became okay. It became a nice, solid, like, little hardcore match, and they kind of dug themselves out of the hole that they had practically thrown themselves into at the start when the rapper went out there. So this segment was looking like a disaster. I felt like they kind of pulled themselves out of it, and Babyfaces won, as I expected. It was fine for what it was. It was cool to see Flip. Did a couple of cool things with it. And personally, I'm a fan of Silas Young, and I'm glad that he got a spot on the card. Shane Taylor, I'm glad that he got a spot on the card. So that was good for them. And the match itself looked like it was going to be a disaster, but I felt like they kind of righted the ship and turned it into something at least okay. Although probably still the weakest match on the show. So, although put a pin in that. I'll come back to that later. Next up after that, we got the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship defended in a triple threat match. Taiji Ishimori defending against Bandito and Dragon Lee. This was great. This was a fast, non-stop action cruiserweight match. This is what, like, a junior division, like, this is the type of match I expect to see out of a junior division. Just high speed, high impact, a lot of action, and it didn't go too long either, which was good. Because I think when you go that fast and furious, if you go too long, it just kind of, I think if it goes too long, it kind of loses its luster after a while. So it was just the right length. A lot of crazy action in there. Very heated stuff. Very well done. It was nice to see, and this was an interesting thing that the show did. The Ring of Honor style matches had like the typical Ring of Honor announcer and wrestled under the Ring of Honor presentation and rules. And the New Japan matches wrestled under New Japan presentation and rules. So they actually had them announcing like the time as it went along. 5 minutes pass. 5 minutes. And I was like, wow, I really like that. It's really weird. Like, you don't really notice it until like you're on a show where some matches do it and some matches don't. And I'm like, I kind of like the New Japan way better. But in any case, I thought the match was very good. Dragon Lee won the title, which was cool. And that was a really good match. One of the better matches on the show, actually. Again, for what it was, you know, you throw 3 junior heavyweights in there, you expect it to be balls to the walls action. That's pretty much what it was. And for that, I really enjoyed it, and I was glad we got a title change out of it, too. So that made it even more memorable. Then we got another multi-person tag. God, so many four-way tags this weekend. It's fucking crazy. Yeah, the Guerrillas of Destiny, Villain Enterprises, the Briscoes, and who's the last team? It was LIJ, Evil and Sonata. And they all went there. All of them getting individual entrances, which is interesting. PCO's entrance, the French Frankenstein. I'm like, that's different. That's... And by the way, I haven't talked too much about PCO. I think it's great that, Pierre has been able to basically reinvent himself in his 50s and become like this great new character and is doing like some of the best work of his career. I'm like, you know what? Good for him. I like that's a veteran that managed to freshen himself up for the modern audience and came up with something that appears to be working really well. And he had the spot of the match where he got powerbombed over the fucking top rope and landed on the floor. I'm like, good lord, dude, you are crazy. Now the match itself, I mentioned in the preview that I wish it had just been 2 separate tag matches because the Fatal 4-Way, it's going to be what it is. It's going to be a spot fest. It's going to be just a lot of crazy action where you lose track of who's in it and who's not. Very much like the SmackDown title match at WrestleMania, this was perfectly acceptable as one of those kind of matches. I enjoyed it. It was fine. It was cool to see the Guerrillas of Destiny on this card. It was cool to see the Briscoes. It was cool to see PCO doing his thing and acting nuts. Cool to see Sonata get a spot on the card. It was perfectly fine as one of those type of matches, although nowhere near like the best thing on the show. Guerrillas of Destiny won, which I'm okay with that. Now, they are now the ROH Tag Champs and the IWGP Tag Champs, so good for them. But like I said, PCO kind of stole the show here. If anybody was the star of the match, it was him. And it was at this point that Enzo and Cass jumped over the rail. I'd already talked about this earlier. Enzo and Cass jumped over the rail and got into a scuffle with the Briscoes and Bully Ray, who stormed down to the ring for some reason. I think they wanted to make it look like a shoot, which is why they didn't actually show it on camera. But if you watch the footage that fans took, it's, oh, okay, it's a work, and it's something that they're doing. I don't know if Enzo and Cass are the type of guys you should be investing in. But we'll see. I don't know. I think in Ring of Honor, like, Enzo has potential to be like a... At the very least, he's going to get heel heat like a motherfucker because that audience is going to hate his fucking guts. So, we'll see if that works out for him. But, yeah, it'll be interesting to see where they go with that. But it was really funny reading that headline that, oh, Enzo and Cass jumped over and caused shit at the show. And initially I thought it was a shoot because, like, if it was a work, they would have shown it, right? But, they're trying to work us. Good for them, I guess. But from there, we got the British Heavyweight Championship, Zack Sabre Jr. versus Hiroshi Tanahashi. I love Zack Sabre Jr. so much. This match was cool. This was a really fun match. It was just Zack Sabre Jr. being Zack Sabre Jr. And Tanahashi proved he doesn't have to high fly flow all over the place to have good matches. Actually, they mentioned during the New Japan Cup, which I didn't watch any of, he didn't go for the high fly flow that much. And proving that, if you limit yourself and try something different, you can actually do something pretty good as well. You don't always have to do the same thing that everybody expects you to do. And Zack Sabre Jr. Can work with just about anybody, it seems. Cool, catch as catch can type of match. That shocked me because Zack Sabre Jr. won. I thought for sure they would give Tanahashi the win in in MSG. But good solid match. Really enjoyed it. Good stuff. Just really happy to see both guys on the show, and I thought they had a really good match. Next up for the IWGP Intercontinental Championship, we had Kota Ibushi getting his big win, defeating Tetsuya Naito in a match that might have been match of the night. I thought this was great. Great stuff. And as per usual, Ibushi puts on a hell of a show. Naito puts on a hell of a show. And they had arguably the match of the night, I thought. It was great stuff, and it was even more satisfying to see Kota Ibushi get his big title win, and now he is the Intercontinental Champion. And thumbs up, good for him. Love this match. I thought it was great. One of the better matches on the show. Then from there, we got the not best match on the show. Matt Taven winning the Ring of Honor Championship in a triple threat ladder match against Jay Lethal and Marty Scurll. This was another match that went way too long, and was super clunky too. Like, it was not that good of a match. It just felt like they were just doing, I mentioned it with the UK title match, there was no flow. This had no flow at all. It was just them doing spots for the sake of doing spots. They did the coolest thing they did in the entire match was Marty snapping Taven's fingers, and then he couldn't grab the belt, which I thought that was neat. But other than that, it was just kind of like standard ladder match stuff in a match that wasn't very well constructed. And Lethal probably got Ring of Honor a lawsuit where he flipped it. They had the X ladder where they crossed two ladders together, and he flipped it outside the ring, and it went right into the front row. And I'm like, oh, that's going to be bad if they decide to pursue legal action. But yeah, I didn't think the match was that good. I think, especially of the big matches on this show, I thought this was the one that really kind of left me feeling dry. And I was like, man, this thing went way. You could have cut this thing in half, and it would have been way more effective. But as is, it just would not end. And it just, again, no flow, no build, no psychology or anything. It was just them doing spots. And the match just didn't do it for me. Now, some of the spots were nice, but it was in a match that just went way too goddamn long. And could have easily been half its length. So if you ask me if I enjoyed the match, honestly, I didn't. Again, I don't want to be a sourpuss, but I honestly just didn't enjoy the match that much. Now, I did enjoy Matt Taven winning the belt. That was cool. And the purple ladder was a nice touch, even though it just kind of got awkwardly inserted into the finish. Would have been cooler if they'd executed that better. But I'm glad Matt Taven won. I like the guy. I don't want to see what he can do with the actual World Heavyweight Championship instead of the purple phony. Actually, looking back on it, I wish they hadn't crushed the purple belt, because it would have been nice if they had referenced WrestleMania 10 and had both belts up. I think I mentioned that in my preview, but as is. Match, not so good. Result was cool, though, so I'll give it that. But this, again, the match went way too long, and I didn't dig it. Personal opinion, probably the worst match on the show for me personally, even though I was happy with the result. Now we go to the main event, and again, it was obvious at this point that the crowd was tired, but Jay White and Kazuchika Okada, to their credit, was able to wake the crowd up and make it great. And I don't know how they did it, but they took kind of a death spot, and they kind of revived the crowd and made it work. So good for them. Like in the first half of the match, you could kind of tell the crowd was still reacting, but they were a little exhausted. But then by the end, they were on their feet and cheering. And it was such a treat for me to see an Okada title match in the Garden. And to see him win the title in the Garden, I'm like, that is so cool. Because as I said in my preview, Okada is probably my #1 wrestler in the world right now. So to see him win the belt back against his hated rival, against the manager that betrayed him in Madison Square Garden, that's the type of stuff you want to see in wrestling. And credit to both guys, because, in New York, you expect that kind of smart marky crowd where they just kind of cheer for everybody and chant, "This is awesome," and fight forever and all that other stuff. But here, they clearly hated Jay White. They clearly hated Gato. And they were fully in Okada's corner. So you had a babyface that they were in support of. You had a heel that they hated. And the babyface won. It was super satisfying. And the closing minutes of that match were crazy. Typical Okada, like reversals and counters and near falls and all that other craziness. Finisher fest without really being a finisher fest because it's all counters. But excellent stuff. I thought it was great, and it was really cool to see Okada win the belt in the main event of this really long show. So that concludes ROH New Japan G1 Supercard. I thought it was a very good show. I didn't think it was a runaway hit or a home run, but I thought overall it was very good. You shave a little time off some things and maybe execute one or two other things better, I'd probably give it an A. As is, I'm going to give it a B. And actually, letter grades up to this point, I'd probably give NXT TakeOver a B, and I'd give WrestleMania a C. So, some good shows this weekend. What was the best show of the weekend? It's either NXT or Supercard. I'm not sure which one I liked more. It's hard to say. Obviously, I didn't necessarily love either show, but I did really enjoy both shows. And I think both of those were kind of worth my whole weekend. Even if WrestleMania could have completely shit the bed, which it didn't, it would have been worth the whole weekend just to see those two shows, because I felt like I got enough entertainment out of both of those. Now, let's go into the show that was not the best of the weekend at all. Impact Wrestling's United We Stand. Now, I didn't expect much out of the show. I thought it was just going to be a nice, fun, solid card for Impact to participate in WrestleMania weekend. It was going to be nothing more than that. And it's like, oh, they got Rob Van Dam on there. Maybe they can do something neat with that. The show was not good. It was by far the worst part of the weekend. By far. And really what it comes down to, the major Achilles heel of the show, the production was so bad. Like, astonishingly bad. Like, I could not believe that a company that was at one time the second biggest wrestling promotion in North America would have production quality that shitty. It was, dude, I've seen indie feds in gymnasiums that came off better than this. And really the major issue was the audio. The audio was fucking up all night long. The entrances, the theme music was really loud, and the announcers were being drowned out by the theme music, and I could not hear the ring announcements for any of the guys. You know, the main event's coming out, Rob Van Dam's coming out, you want to hear the ring announcer say, and here comes from Battle Creek, Michigan, Rob Van Dam, or something like that. I could not hear the ring announcer the entire night. Not once the entire night could I hear any of the ring announcements. Could barely hear the crowd. I've heard reports that the crowd was actually hot throughout the night. It's like, could have fooled me. Couldn't hear you because the audio was fucked up. And then at the tail end of the show, somebody shut the lights off while Rob Van Dam, Sabu, and the Lucha Brothers are shaking hands in the ring. And I'm like, what? They just couldn't go off the air without one more fuck up. They were late starting. I remember I turned on the feed and it took a while for them to come onto the air, so clearly they were having issues early on, and they just never got on track. They would do backstage promos and segments. I could barely hear what the wrestlers were saying. It was just a goddamn mess all night long. And it's a shame too, because the wrestlers tried. I mean, you look at that Ultimate X match in the opener, and you know, they're taking all these bumps, they're falling all over the place. Ace Austin, who was a last minute substitute, he went out there and acted crazy. Johnny ultimately won the match, but overall it was a spot fest, but it would have made a nice opener if I could hear what was going on, but the audio kept cutting out. Yeah, Team Lucha Underground versus Team Impact. Team Lucha Underground got the win, which I was happy to see that, but again, the audio was fucked up, so that was causing problems. And that was just the story throughout the entire fucking night. What else was on this card? Yeah, Taya Valkyrie successfully defended the title in a fatal 4-way against Jordan Grace. Rosemary and Katie Forbes, who I'd never seen before, she is smoking hot, by the way. Still a little green. She tried to do the spot that Bianca Belair did the next night with the double Death Valley driver, but she couldn't hold up both girls. It was like, oop, that's unfortunate. But that match, you know, under normal circumstances would have been fine. The 8-man tag where Tommy Dreamer was a surprise partner, under normal circumstances would have been fine, but again, the production issues were so distracting that it kind of killed the matches and killed the whole mood of the night, to be perfectly honest. And then they get to the main event, and I guess the show was running long or something, because the main event was really, really short. Like, it felt like it ended right before it started. Or it ended just as it was getting started. So I felt like they got cut for time, kind of like in an All In situation, where All In got away with it, was because the big matches we already got to see. And the main event was only the main event because it was the Bucks in the main event. So it was just cool to see the Bucks. But here it was like, all right, Rob Van Dam and Sabu are the most heavily promoted thing on the show. You want that to be kind of a big deal, and the match itself didn't deliver because they got their time cut, I guess. I don't know. And it was just constant fuck-ups all night long, production-wise. And this thing was just a fucking 3-ring circus the entire night. I was in awe the entire show. Like, I can't believe how bad the production on this is. They were missing camera angles. They were, again, the audio issues were the big thing all night long. And, you know, I could go over all of these matches. What else came next? There was Latin American Exchange defeating Low Key and Ricky Martinez. Match was okay. Got a little slow starting. You had Rich Swann successfully defending the X title against Flamita. That match was okay. Sami Callihan versus Jimmy Havoc in a Monsters Ball. That match was just basic hardcore stuff. Didn't really care for it. It just felt like they were being weird for the sake of being weird. The Lego spot, I guess, was kind of different, but not much else. And like I said, the main event tanked. Honestly, if I had to pick a match of the night, I would probably give it to Tessa Blanchard and Joey Ryan, because it was just them doing a bit the entire time. I don't know why Tessa was in a match against Joey Ryan where she was clearly the face, and Tessa is like the biggest woman heel that Impact has, but, you know, looking at it in its own container, it was just them doing a shtick the entire time, and Joey trying to sexually harass her the entire match, and her defeating him and getting her revenge on him. I was like, you know what, of all the matches on the show, that was the one I enjoyed the most, because the production issues got in the way the least, and they were just able to have this 3-ring circus of a match. But also, I like Tessa a lot. Not a big fan of the dick flip spot, which of course I was at in this match, but, you know, it is what it is. And, you know, I could sit here and talk about the matches in depth, but honestly, the production issues were so distracting that it just killed the entire show and made me regret spending money on it. And I was like, oh, what did I do? Why did I do that? You know, last year's TNA Lucha Underground show was fun, and I guess I just kind of expected something along the lines of that, and that was not what I got. What I got was kind of this shitty mess of a show that got the weekend off on a bad foot, but fortunately the other shows this weekend were good. So, yeah, I enjoyed TakeOver. I enjoyed G1 Supercard. Wrestlemania, first half was great. Second half, not so much. United We Stand, easily the worst show, like by a country mile. Like there's not even a close second. And it's unfortunate that happened, but them's the breaks. I'm just sad that I spent money on it. That's really the biggest disappointment of that whole thing, is that I spent money on it. But in any case, finally, over an hour and a half in, I finally reviewed all the shows that I watched WrestleMania weekend. Thank you all for watching this really long video. I'm going to take a sabbatical, a post-WrestleMania sabbatical, as I tend to do. Christmas time, post-WrestleMania, those are when I take my breaks. It's just how it is. So no videos for me for a couple of weeks. Next time you see me, I will be doing my final Kaiju Corner, which will be talking about King Kong. My next Star Wars book review, which will be the conclusion to the New Jedi Order series. Finally getting that out of the way. Concluding that series that I started in January of last year. I reviewed Vector Prime, and now I've finally gotten through all the books, and we're going to conclude it here in April. And I'll have another top 10 video at the start of the month. But for right now, gonna take a break for a couple of weeks while I get readjusted and just get over the Mania hangover and everything. But thank you all for watching. That is all I have for you now, and I'll see you all later.